All right, welcome back to day number 14 of the daily challenge. So, I am traveling on the road, got an early flight, so we're pre-filming this one just to give you a heads up, but we'll let it play because Lola and I will be traveling to Las Vegas, Nevada. I will be speaking at the QuickBooks or the Intuit Connect conference. So, I have two speaking sessions that I'm going to be doing there. But today, what I wanted to talk about is something that I've heard a lot of business owners say, and it's something that I've used to say myself is this concept of trust your judgment. Like as a business owner or as a leader, is learning to trust your judgment, and which I don't disagree that you should, and that you can you. I don't say that you shouldn't trust your judgment, but what I have learned over time is that as a leader, you should know when to question your own judgment, because a lot of times when we are doing different things and a lot of times we're trying to work through different scenarios and we don't quite know, like, what questions to ask, because even if you do have great intentions but you come to the wrong conclusion, that can be pretty disastrous. And so what you want to do is you want to figure out, like, when is the right way or the right time for me as a leader to ask myself some questions, because what if the my judgment is based on something that isn't true? Because I've seen this happen to a lot of business owners where they come to a conclusion about a matter only to find out that the underlying assumptions that they were using to come to that conclusion were not accurate. And if those underlying assumptions aren't accurate, then you're probably not going to come to the right conclusion, or you're probably not going to come to the best conclusion. So you do have to go through this process of really kind of questioning and validating, like, why is it that I've come to this certain conclusion? And so what I want to do is I want to pull up what I call a decision framework. And this is something that I've learned to do myself, and I encourage other people to do it as well. So let me just go ahead and pull up this decision framework, and we'll walk through a very clear and a very common example. So in this decision framework, and let me make it bigger so everybody can see it. So in this decision framework, so let's look at this common situation. I hear a lot of business owners say, hey, we should lower our prices. Okay. All right. I don't know whether that's the right decision or the wrong decision yet. What I do need to do is, if that's what your intuition is telling you, let's actually walk through this and let's get a better idea on, is that the right conclusion? So after a business owner or a law firm or whoever I'm working with, after they tell me that, hey, I think we should lower our prices, the next question I'm going to ask is, okay, all right, why do you think why are you thinking that this is the right conclusion, or why are you thinking about this? And then they commonly, people will tell me, oh, we've been losing customers, or our competitors came up with a cheaper solution or a cheaper option. Okay, good. Now what I will say is, we still don't know if lowering your prices is the right decision. I mean, it could be or it may not be, but then we have to go a little bit deeper. And so the first question I usually ask, okay, you told me that you've been losing customers. So who are the customers that you've been losing? Like, give me a little bit more context about the customers. And a lot of times what I tend to find out is the customers that are maybe it's a customer that wanted, let's say, special projects, or they wanted more time with the owner, or let's say it's someone who, hey, they had a different set of expectations. All right. So as we start to kind of lay that out and we say, okay, all right, if these are the things that, like, the kind of people who have left. And then another one I usually like to ask is, well, what is the average price of the people who left? Now, a lot of times what you tend to find is a lot of companies who are in that kind of space where they're telling me that they think they should lower their price. A lot of times what ends up happening is the people who pay the low price, like you should say, the low price customers, a lot of times the low price customers are the ones that's leaving. And I'm like, That's good for us to know. So let's understand that. And then I'll ask, did any of them mention anything about your price when they were leaving? Because a lot of times when clients leave, they may tell you why they left. Like if you have a decent relationship with them, they'll tell you why they left. Or if you have a somewhat of some type of rapport with them, they'll give you some insight or, hey, what are some of the current concerns that they have? And a lot of times what you tend to find is that what I've found is a lot of people will talk about, we need to lower our prices. And I'll ask, okay, all right, has anyone actually complained about your prices or has anyone said anything about your prices? And a lot of times what you find is like, no, they didn't. So that may not be the right decision. So let's just say in this scenario, you know, no, no one mentioned pricing on the way out. All right, cool. And then the next thing that I ask is, all right, now that we've kind of got an idea of who has left, because you said losing customers is a big deal to you. So, of the people that left, are these the type of people that you want to work with? Like, are these like the ideal customers that are leaving? Or are these the customers who, in some respects, you probably should have never signed them up anyway. You probably should have never done business with them in the first place. So, kind of, those are two extremes. Like, are they the really ideal customers, like the people you want to work with, or are they the people who you probably should have never been doing business with? And what I tend to find, and we've experienced this even in our own firm, where times where we've lost clients, a lot of times when we've lost clients, it has been people that we probably should not have taken on as a client for various reasons, meaning like their expectations were different than what we actually deliver, or they were looking for a high touch, low cost option, which that isn't us. And so when you start to really ask yourself, like, are the people who are leaving, are they the actual, ideal customers? And so let's say in this case, you know what, most are not our ideal customer. So here's where I start to ask the questions to the business owners and say, all right, so based on what you're telling me is you feel like you should lower your price because you've lost some customers and competitors are coming up with, cheaper options, but the customers that you have left are not really the type of customers you want to do business with. So you're telling me you're going to lower your price to try to attract the people that you really shouldn't be doing business with in the first place. And I'm like, if that's what you're telling me, then I would probably say lowering your price might not be the right solution, or it might not be the idea you want to lean into. Maybe we need to look at some other options, because if only the people that you don't want to work with, or let's say if most of the people who are leaving are people that you aren't your ideal client, then maybe they're not the people you should be changing your entire business to keep happy, because you don't want to focus on trying to keep the people you don't want happy. You want to focus on who is the right fit. What are the types of clients that I want to do business with? Now, that one can get a little challenging for people. So a couple of other questions that we usually put in that decision framework is helping them understand. All right, the next question I want to know is can you find customers that are willing to pay more? Like, because I think that becomes a challenge for a lot of companies that are saying we need to lower our prices. They don't feel like they can find the clients who are willing to pay more. And one of the things that I would recommend or that you do is to really look at your competitors. So look at your competitors, and what you want to start doing is seeing what are some competitors who actually have higher price points than you. Like, what are those competitors that seem to be more expensive than you? And what you can do is just study and just ask yourself, like, hey, what are they doing that is different from what we are doing? Because if they are able to find people who pay more, then that means there are people out there who are willing to pay more money for the solution or the service you provide. You may have to adjust how you approach it. And one of those things is really how you position your product or your service as a higher quality product. For example, if you go buy a car, let's say if you go to the BMW dealership or if you go to the Kia dealership, you're not going to pay the same price for a BMW that you would get for a Kia. That's normally not the case. Or let's say you go to a Tesla dealership, or let's say you want to buy a Cadillac or whatever type of luxury car. Just understand that both of them are cars, but one of them has positioned itself as a premium product. And what you have to do in your industry, in your business, is you need to kind of understand, like, is there a way for you to position your product as a premium product? Maybe you can come up with some, I guess you would say, let's say you come up with some complementary goods, or you come up with something that complements your product or your service, meaning when you buy the main product, you also get these other things that actually help people utilize the product more. So let's just complementary goods and slash services. And once you start to do that, what you can do is you can start to set your business apart. For example, when we're working with law firms, one of the things that we do is, yes, you may find other firms that do bookkeeping, but one of the things that we do is we actually establish, hey, for the first couple of months, we're going to include a monthly meeting to where we're reviewing the numbers with you to get you comfortable that you understand the numbers. Because see, it's one thing for us to do our job on the bookkeeping side, but it's something completely different if we're willing to take the time to help you understand those numbers and to help you get those numbers in a way that makes sense to you. So for a lot of our bookkeeping clients is when we onboard you as a bookkeeping client, we'll spend a couple of months really making sure you understand it. And we also set up automatic reporting that is customized to the way you need to see the data that makes sense for you. And so when we're doing that, we're taking the same bookkeeping service that probably other firms are doing, but we've added to it a complementary service that actually makes our service actually higher quality in the minds of the customers, and which it is higher quality because we're actually helping them learn how to use the financial data to make business decisions. And when we combine those, we tend to stand out as higher quality than some of their other options that they have. And then what I will say is you want to go back to that original hypothesis. So your original thought and your original judgment call said you need to lower your price. So we can go back to that. And now that we've gone through this decision framework, and we need to ask ourselves, based on all the things that we've talked to, do you still think that that is the right answer? And all of this is really just to help you understand that, hey, when you come up with a judgment call or you come up with a hypothesis, something that you think is true, as a business, you may have to take the time to really explore it and say, okay, all right, how do I walk through this as I would say a responsible leader in a business? How do I look at, okay, here's the judgment call that I am thinking about making. How do I go through that process and say, all right, let me see if my judgment or my hypothesis, or let me see if my idea is actually legitimate based on going through this and really thinking through it and figuring out, does this really make sense? Because if you're not willing to go through that process and go through that, then what's going to happen is you may be relying on your judgment, but if your judgment is based on wrong assumptions, or if your judgment is based on things that are either inaccurate or things that just are not aligned with what your real goals are, your judgment is going to lead you down the wrong path. So, as a leader, you got to figure out, how do you actually question your judgment just to make sure that your judgment is leading you down the right path. Thanks for tuning in.